Now let's take a look at how to handle forms and form elements in VueJs. I'll speed things up a bit. You've already seen how to create a project for React and for Alpine.js, and here it is done the same way. So I just did npm create vite, and I selected VueJs, normal JavaScript and not TypeScript, and then ran npm install in the created subdirectory. So I've prepared a form here and we want to see how it works in VueJs. I won't explain how VueJs works in general here, but you will see that there are some very big similarities to Alpine.js, and that's no surprise because Alpine.js has used parts of VueJs. So there are some things that are really very similar, among other things like this colon and the @ sign here. How does it all work in VueJs? For that, I have a component here, the only component with a form. And here we are using the so-called composition API. There are two possibilities in Vue, the older options API and then the composition API. This is composition API, and we have the script here that sets everything up, which also declares our variables here, our state variables. And this is it. For that, we use ref, so this function here. And then we use these variables here in the template below, and we can simply write them here just like in Alpine.js. And here we have an event handler called @change. So this attribute @change will register an event handler for the change event. You can then write a function in there, which is a normal event handler. Basically, it gets the event as a parameter, and then you can use it to change or set our first name state here, for example. And I haven't done the whole thing here with last name yet, but that would be the equivalent. So let's take a closer look at this. We have here colon and then value equals first name. This works similar to Alpine with this colon value, or in Alpine it was, in the long form, it was x minus bind colon value. That means this value is set to first name here. So this is the data binding between these two. So here, this value attribute is set to this JavaScript expression in quotes here. So in this case, it is first name that we get here from this ref expression. So similar to React with useState and setting the value prop there. So then we have this event handler with @change. So it's reacting to the change event. And here we can set a function which gets an event. So this is very similar to React also. And the long form would be in Alpine x -on and then colon and then the event. So change in this case, but this is the short form, just @ and then the event name. And here we have in this function what the event handler does, and it's simply setting first name to event.target.value. We already know that. It's actually used everywhere. Also for Alpine, that would be the way to go. And also in Alpine, we had model, and you can do it the same here. This way we can save some code if we really just want to do this two-way data binding here. So first remove this here and then replace it with vModel. It's not xModel, but vModel. V, of course, stands for Vue. And then we can remove this event handler here. And now let's look at submit to see what happens here. Or rather, we need to check here what is done with submit first. So we have this @submit.prevent, so the same as in Alpine, and it simply means that the form submission is prevented here. Prevent default is called. So on submit, and then we just have the prevent. That means we don't need to write it here in this code anymore. It's done automatically, and we simply output here console log first name. That's all there is at the moment. Then I just enter my name here, click submit, and we see it is output correctly. That means this vModel has created a data binding here. That means the input made here is simply connected with this first name property that we created here with this ref. Of course, you can also do it differently here. We can also make an output here with an output element, and then we can write it in VueJS like this. So double curly braces, and then the variable that was created with ref, or you can use any JavaScript expression here inside the curly braces. Submit, and then we have basically the same thing again as we had already for Alpine.js. So you can also connect this ref down here with the double curly braces. Another possibility would be to use v-text and then write first name inside the string here. So that is the same as in Alpine, only vtext and not xtext. We see it's immediately displayed here in the output, so vtext instead of xtext, so that's easy. And in VueJS you have not x but v as a prefix here for the attributes. And in Alpine you cannot do the double curly braces as a text content because you just have to work with HTML and JavaScript and there's no pre-compilation or something like that. So now of course we can handle last name the same way here. So just first name plus space and then plus last name. And then let's see if this works. So my name, and then we see that this works. That means you can write normal JavaScript expressions here inside these attributes, and it's not supposed to be a VueJS course, of course. I just wanted to briefly touch on how to handle form data or form elements here, and you see it's very similar to Alpine.js. That means if you know Alpine.js, you have a good foundation to quickly learn VueJS, and vice versa, of course. And if you already are a VueJS expert, then Alpine should be no problem at all. The only difference or main difference here is that you added view files here, .view files, which then have a script part and they have an HTML part. So you have this template here, which is completely HTML. And you also have a style that is scoped to this component then, or can be scoped to this component. Well, that should be it here. I will not go into further details with select and textarea, but you have already seen how it works here. So if you want to go further, of course, you can check the VueJS documentation. Everything is actually very well described there. And you can also read up on how it works with textarea. And spoiler alert, it works exactly the same as here with the input fields. So there's basically no difference, and there are even more things possible here. So you can, for example, add multiple checkboxes to an array if they are checked. So please just take a look at the VueJS documentation under form input bindings. It's all very well documented there. And then in principle, it's exactly the same as what I've done here. You can always use vmodel, or you can do it manually with the @change and the colon value. That works too. Or you can do it as mentioned with vmodel.